Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening for this panel discussion about the student experience at Vanderbilt University. I'm Walt Bishke. I'm the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions here in the Graduate School. And first, again, let me congratulate you on your admission to Vanderbilt from a very competitive applicant pool. And we're delighted that you came to join us tonight. We're excited about the conversation that we're going to have. We've got some current student panelists here who are going to talk to you about their first year student experiences, and we want to get to as many of your questions as possible as well. So please feel free to raise your hand or speak out, or just put your question in the chat. And we're going to start here in a moment with introductions and a brief icebreaker question, since we have an intimate room here. So when I call on you, please say your name, what is your program of study, and what is your favorite movie? We'll start with Joshua.
I didn't have enough time to think of my favorite movie. But hi everyone, I'm Joshua. I am a current graduate student, fourth year PhD student. I'm in the Civil and Environmental Engineering department here at Vanderbilt. Am I missing something? Favorite movie?
Favorite movie?
Let's go with the Batman series. I think that was always interesting to me. Yeah.
I second that. I'll go. So Walt Bishke, Graduate Admissions, and I think my favorite movie of all time is the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Rachel.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rachel Hannabutt, and I'm an advanced doctoral student in Peabody in the Human and Organizational Development Department. My program is called Community Research and Action. And my favorite movie, I love all the Marvel movies, and so I can't really pick one, but I love them all. So you'll catch me watching the Marvel movies.
Noah.
Hello, my name is Noah Lien. My program of study is sociology, and my favorite movie, I also really like Marvel movies, and I don't really have a specific one to talk about. So I would also go with your answer, just all the Marvel movies, yeah.
Right. Sarah.
Hello, my name is Sarah. I'm a prospective student. I'm currently a senior at Rice, and I've been admitted to the Community Research and Action program.
Great. Nishant.
I'm currently a master's student from India, and I'm a prospective student for the graduate program in physics and astronomy.
Marisa.
Hi, my name is Marissa. I'm a PhD student in the biostatistics program here at Vanderbilt, which is part of the BRET office, which stands for Biomedical Research, Education, and Training. My favorite movie is Shiva Baby.
Paige.
There we go. Hi, my name's Paige. I'm a prospective student for the quantitative and chemical biology program, and I don't have a favorite movie, so I'm sorry.
You're young. You have time to choose one. Well, great. So we are going to just have an organic discussion about the student experience here at Vanderbilt. I am going to throw out topics and questions, but we want this to just be a free flow exchange and discussion. So please, as I said, feel free to just chime in like we're all at a coffee house, sitting around the table, chatting about life. So as much as you feel comfortable, please consider turning your cameras on, being part of the discussion, and we want to have dialogue and community with you. So I'll start with a question to the student panelists. What was it that made you choose Vanderbilt for your graduate education? Maybe we could start with Rachel and anyone else who wants to chime in.
Sure. So I think this may be a cop-out answer, but I chose Vanderbilt because it's Vanderbilt. It's a very prestigious institution with a lot of resources. And I knew that with my really interdisciplinary interests, that the Community Research and Action Program was going to be a good fit for me. But since I have been to a lot of other institutions, Vanderbilt just really, really, when they say they are well-resourced and they have pretty much everything you could need, that is what has been true for me. And I honestly am so glad that I did because of that reason. And it was apparent to me when I was looking at different schools that Vanderbilt had a lot of options for things. I didn't have to feel like, oh, well, if my advisor fit isn't exactly right, like I'm not going to find support elsewhere. There was a lot of other options. And so, yeah, resources.
I'll chime in or follow that and say that that was definitely a part of my decision as well. I had the opportunity to do a undergraduate research experience the summer before, and basically got a sneak peek of what it might be like to be in this department and be a student. And that's what really sold me. For starters, interdisciplinary was something that's mentioned, and I think is one of the biggest strengths of being at a school like this. The resources, the expertise, they just cross over in so many different ways that you have some flexibility in terms of how you want to approach the topics that you're interested in. The support system has been phenomenal. I felt like at every level, from faculty to administration to just different departments and staff, there were people there that I could rely on to help give me a holistic experience. And that was just in a short summer. So with all of that in mind, it was pretty easy for me to press the button.
For me, when I was looking at schools, Vanderbilt felt like basically the only biostatistics program where the people who were recruiting me actually were interested in me as an individual. Like, they were just very interested in helping me find the right fit. And other places it just felt like a number where, you know, you get that automatic email that says you're in and no person really follows up with you. And yeah, the culture just felt like a really good fit. And also I was interested in living somewhere that I wanted to be at for the next 5 years of my life. And, you know, some people going into grad school, that's not the biggest consideration for them. The academics are the main thing. But for me, I wanted to be somewhere I would be happy. And Nashville has been just an amazing city. So it's been good.
And what would you say were some of your biggest challenges to overcome as first-year students?
I'm just gonna say I think I should sit this one out because COVID was like my first year, so it's probably not applicable.
Just same. I was gonna say COVID pretty much. I think we were on campus like 6 months, and then COVID hit, and so the first year was kind of a blur. But at the same time, I feel like Vanderbilt really came together as a community, and that like sense of community that we've built back up since the pandemic has made the graduate experience even stronger. So I think a lot of the pain points and things that everyone across the country was experiencing during COVID, Vanderbilt really administrators paid attention, especially to grad students, and started putting in like meaningful fixes and supports in places where there may have been gaps before. And so I see it as like a blessing, but now maybe not back then.
I think another thing that came with that experience, because my first year was COVID as well, there's a transition that happens between taking college courses and then some of these graduate courses in terms of how you learn. It's very open-ended. Typically, there are times where I didn't even know what grade I had. And coming from a place where that was one of the most important things, having to switch my mindset to say, I'm in this class to gather information that will be necessary for my research in the future. It's just a shift in thinking to where it's more open-ended. You do the best in the classes where you make sure you take time to explore the topics outside and make connections to what you're doing. And there are plenty of opportunities to take what you do in class and directly apply it to research. But it took some time for me to understand that it's less about the grade and more about making sure that I'm taking and specifying the information that I need for my research.
So how would you describe a day in the life as a student? And I know that it will look different for first-year students versus students who are further along in their PhD studies and maybe into the research phase of writing the dissertation. But maybe just describe a walk through a typical day and like what your work environment is like, your interactions with other students and faculty. What does a typical day look like for you now? Let's start with, oh, go ahead.
I can start. Basically, I love coming to campus. I think there are so many fun places to be on campus. And so I come to campus a lot. I work out of the Mayborn building on Peabody's campus, which was recently renovated. So it's really nice. And there's lots of like newness about it. And at the same time, faculty are right alongside spaces where students are working. Of course, we have a lot of, it's over closer to where all the undergrads live. So we have a lot of undergrads around us, which I like. I really stay on Peabody's campus a lot of times, but any times that I cross over to main campus, you'll find me at the Central Library or sometimes at the bookstore. Like there's just a lot of places that you can kind of like mix it up. But I do like coming to campus a lot. I think that might be a remnant of COVID, like wanting more in-person like communication and connection. But Vanderbilt definitely has a lot of space for that, which is great.
So I guess for myself, in the beginning, when you're taking courses, your schedule might center around the courses, and then you're checking in with your advisor to see how you can balance all of that. In the latter stages, I've been more focused on research, and so that means there are times that I have to set aside for writing specifically. The cool thing about being in the office on campus is sometimes there are just organic conversations that I have that end up being useful down the line. There's probably a seminar that has some free food, so I don't have to pay for lunch that day. There's always something going on, and I definitely want to give props to the graduate school for just the amount of programming that they do to make sure that we are good in all phases as students, even if they have like snacks on Fridays. So there are always things like that that fill in the gaps in your day. But the main thing will typically be your classes, and depending on the work you're doing with your research, whether it's in the lab or on a laptop, that'll probably fill up most of your day.
I guess day to day is really hard to answer, more like weekly schedule for me. At this point, I think the first 2 years, like day to day, it's easier to answer. It's kind of, well, in my program, the first 2 years are kind of similar to like when you're an undergrad, you take a full course load, you go in for classes, you see your peers, and then you do homework in between classes and after. For me in biostats, everyone, unless you're taking classes, you're basically virtual unless your advisor specifically wants to meet in person. So for me, Mondays, mornings, I go to coffee shop, do research. Afternoon, I go home and I grade for my TA job. And then and then I do some, and then later in the afternoon, I joined a write-on group, which is through the GPAS. I don't know how they GPAS office, which is the Graduate and Professional Academic Success. Someone can correct me if that's wrong.
Yep,
Which
that's
is
right.
really cool. Okay, it's a really cool resource. If you sign up for the group, you meet 2 hours each week. And it's basically a group for people who need to work on writing, that they're writing. So I can go in and work on anything I need for like writing that I'm working on. And then that's my Monday, which gears me up for the rest of the week, basically, because I do like little parts from everything I do. And then each day after that, I usually like focus on one specific like thing of my several tasks.
Well, we all know that life at Vanderbilt is not all research, all studies, all business all the time. We are situated in a vibrant city called Nashville, and it happens to be the 21st largest city in the United States with a population of 693,000 people. So let's paint a picture about what do you love about Nashville?
The food. The food is great. I have not had bad food in Nashville. I'm not a big I'm not a big country music fan. I like music. And when I first moved here, I was a little nervous that it'd just be country music, and that's not my vibe. But there's so many amazing like music and art like that you get exposed to just living in Nashville. But then even that, like I know a lot of grad students in particular may not live like downtown or like in the city because it's more expensive. And so I think there's a lot of really great kind of around the periphery of Nashville, like communities that you can find, a lot of different cultural communities. And I think there's a lot of fit for a lot of people. So a lot of folks in my program live like literally everywhere, to the point where we'll have like happy hours and we'll like go around the city because we want to make sure that we're like diversifying where we're meeting at. But I think Nashville is definitely like a young like town that is exciting for people that are younger. And I think that like with Vanderbilt being so close to the center, it's like super easy to like have a social life, do your thing, and also like be really great at school.
Yeah, I agree with that. The music scene is pretty cool. There are times during the year where you can walk across the street to Centennial Park and there's live music and food trucks, which is a welcome sight after staring at a computer for a little bit. Nashville is growing in terms of the food options, the diversity, and even their sports teams are getting better, more interesting. I recently went to a hockey game, and that was probably about one of the more fun experiences I've had here. The art and the cultural scene is another really cool thing. There are several museums here that cover different aspects of music history, of history of the city or state. So I would venture to say that if you're somebody that's outdoorsy, if you like inside, there are like speakeasy places. I really feel like there is something for everyone, which is a cool thing to say if you're going to be in a place for a relatively long time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all of that. Where I live now, I'm in walking distance to the soccer stadium, so I got season tickets. Home opener is this weekend, which is really exciting. So sports are really fun here. There's farmers markets like almost every day in a different location in the city. The food there is great. I will say like you have to fit I personally haven't always loved every restaurant I've tried, but everything I've tried at a farmers market has been amazing. And there's a lot of really good restaurants just coming from New York, New Jersey. Think the food up there is better, but the food here is not bad. There's a lot of really good places. And then for me with Nashville, I'm part of the LGBTQ community, and I found a really great like the whole community here is really good. If you go to East Nashville, like there's bars, but there's also like groups for people, like there's book clubs, and I joined a queer sports league, and I get to meet so many people outside of Vanderbilt. And like sometimes you might be worried about the South not being very accepting about, anybody. But there's just a lot of really great people here and community that you can find for, like Josh was saying, like there's almost something for everyone.
And is it easy to get around the city? Easy to navigate? Do you need a car here, or have you used the public transportation or ride share? What are some of your favorite ways to get from A to B?
I mean, just being completely honest, like having a car is definitely a plus. Like it's not a necessity. I think there's a bus line. It's fairly reliable and you get it for free with your student ID. So like that's a huge plus. So if you're not bringing a car, I would absolutely recommend making sure you really study the bus maps and like set yourself up for success there. Traffic is like not always the best, but you just have to kind of plan your time around the rush hours. And there's like this joke that you can get like anywhere in Nashville in 20 minutes, like, but it's going to take 20 minutes.
Or
So
15 is what I say, actually. I haven't heard other people say it. I thought it was my joke.
yeah, it's like it's kind of funny. It's like it is very consistent, like with about that much time. But yeah, it's definitely a lot easier if you drive. You can get a parking pass for campus, or there's also like if you're like really savvy with free parking, you can kind of get that around campus too. But I do have a parking pass, and I think even though it's expensive, it's definitely been a great kind of setup for me.
Yeah, I'll briefly add that, and we'll probably talk about this if we discuss housing. There's typically trade-offs being in this area. So if you are somebody that doesn't either have access to a car or want to do that much driving, I definitely recommend trying to find places closer to the city center, just because the bus line is easier to navigate if you're around there. I had access to a car, so I decided to stay a little bit further away. And like Rich was saying, it's about timing. So there's a certain time where I'm not going to leave the house. And there's a certain time where I'm going to give up on getting home. Like you do have to time it. And that's just because there's so many people coming to the city, which I do attribute to some of the economic growth and also just the growth of the city and its attractiveness overall.
So I think that is a good segue into talking about the living experience here. Let's talk some about how you found housing, maybe a roommate, and what that experience is like. Why don't you kick us off, Joshua?
Okay. Yeah, I was actually looking for a link. So Vanderbilt actually has a housing portal where you can look at available housing. I think it's run in partnership with apartments.com or something like that. And there's also a function where you can look for roommates. So as I was saying, I think if you're gonna go without a car, it's probably good to stay a little closer in the area. And typically, because of the variability of housing prices, if you're okay with having a roommate, you'll save a lot of money. I definitely don't recommend spending large amounts of stipends or any funding you have on housing if you can avoid it. And so it just comes down to those trade-offs where typically if you can find a roommate, that's good, or you will probably be looking on the outskirts of the city if you want to either be by yourself or you have access to a car. I would say, so there are resources there to help you out, and just make that decision for yourself and weigh like what are the important things to you. For me, it was a washer dryer. I just had to have a washer dryer in my apartment, so that pushed me a little further out. But I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I've been on that website that Josh was talking about, and it definitely is a good way to connect with people who are also looking for roommates. Otherwise, I found my apartment just by like looking up apartment places in Nashville. And I know there was at some point like a nice catalog circulating within, I think I got the catalog I was looking at from the medical school but I think there's also one from Peabody where like students had told higher up people where they were living, and they created a nice catalog by neighborhood. But that's probably like 5 years old now. So the one I used is 5 years old now. But students are very willing to be helpful with it. And yeah, I think that's all I can advise.
To your points about some of the websites and internet-based resources, the graduate school website has an incoming student guide section where we have the links that that our students were talking about, the housing, the Office of Housing and Residential Life has a roommate and apartment finder link that you can find there. And there's lots of choices available. So definitely want to point you to the graduate school website guide for incoming students.
I can add a couple tips. So I have a little bit different of a situation. I didn't have to find a roommate. I brought him with me. And so I moved here with my partner and knew that I wasn't going to be going through the traditional grad school housing. But finding an apartment complex pretty close to campus was pretty easy. There are a ton of them, and they're mostly like newly renovated with lots of great amenities. We lived about 10-minute drive away from campus my first year, and then COVID hit. And knowing that we would be here for about 5 years, we were able to purchase a house, which I know is not everybody's story, but it was a good kind of financial decision for us. But that did mean that we were a little bit more outside the city. I will say though, for friends, like the other advice outside of the Vanderbilt resources, I lived in Boston before I moved here, so I was really used to using like Facebook groups and other online groups to kind of see what was available, maybe from third parties. Of course, be careful with like Craigslist and things like that. I would definitely say Nashville has a really rich like Facebook group. Every like neighborhood has like its own Facebook group, and so that might be a good way to like see if there are additional places if you're wanting to live in more like a house where they're renting out a couple rooms versus like an apartment complex. Another big tip that I would say is like get in touch with the people in your program that you're entering. Every year, I know we have a few people who kind of ask, and we'll circulate it in our student group me's or via listservs, and we'll in some ways, like I've even paired up like current students with like people a couple years older that I've known, and it's been just a great fit. I think you could totally have a great experience living with a non-Vanderbilt student. That might be a good work-life fit type thing. But I know there are a lot of people that are looking for roommates all the time, and like having an incoming student is like icing on the cake. I think the last piece of advice I have is just to be really mindful. Nashville is a really growing city. And so there are definitely scams out there. There are definitely, just like with any city, and there are definitely people that are trying to overcharge. And so as with that, ask some of the people in your program, okay, like, is this a good amount to be paying for rent? Like a lot of apartment complex, because they're looking to fill, will give you like a free like month of rent. Like, so take advantage of your options and make sure that you're doing your research so that you're not taken advantage of just because you're new and maybe looking from afar. I've definitely went and like visited places for incoming students, like because they weren't able to physically be here, just to make sure it was going to be like a safe place for them to live. So reach out, and like once you're a part of the Vanderbilt family, like take advantage of that, and folks will help you out.
Good advice from everybody. Well, let's turn our discussion back to, before I turn our discussion to a different topic, I just wanted to also say that we have a dedicated session on housing that you may have seen or even attended. And we will have a recording of that session on the graduate school website under the information for admitted students section. So it's a great, if you hadn't been able to attend, it's a great session where we talk about the different Nashville neighborhoods, all the hot spots to eat, entertainment, and some of the apartment buildings and options that are nearby. So that's a great resource to check out and to really help you visualize the city and what life here can look like. So let's shift gears back to the academic, would you describe your relationship with your faculty advisor, and how does that person shape and guide your academic career? Marisa, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. My advisor's really great. She came to my orchestra concert last semester, which was really cool. Like, I just mentioned I had a rehearsal one day, and then she was like, "Oh, I want to go to your concert," and I was really like, my mom was like 4 rows above her in the audience, and they're both taking photos. It's really cute. But academically, I'm not a good person to answer this question because my department's kind of weird in the way that we like do advisors, but she's my RA advisor, and maybe gonna be my dissertation advisor, but that's not like decided yet. So I basically I've learned a lot about her work, and I have learned like new softwares and applications through my work with her. But I can't really answer the question yet about like how she guides me academically too much, aside from like learning things for her research.
That's a good start.
I will say that one of the most important things is to have a conversation with your advisor beforehand and like establish some general understanding about how, like what you are both looking for in this advisor sort of mentee relationship. One of the things I really appreciate about my advisor is she will give me opportunities to explore. And that plays out in different ways. For example, I've been able to go to conferences that aren't like completely aligned with my work, but there's an aspect of it that could be tied in. And from there, I've been able to just take advantage of that networking opportunity, travel, which is a nice bonus. I won't say that is everyone's experience. And so one of the first things you would want to do is ask your advisor, what are they looking for from you? And then think about it and communicate to them some of the ways that you like to improve based on where you want to go in the future. For example, if you want to be academic for the long term, if you see your advisor as being in a position that is close to where you want to be, there are going to be some things they can show you in terms of procedures, building relationships, writing. And so you want to make sure that you get those. And so communicating that is a really important step. I will also say that because of the just immense network that it exists here, there will be some things that you might want to add that maybe other people in your network might be better suited to do. And if that's the case, I don't see a problem in building those relationships as well. I've also been able to get a ton of feedback and advice from other people in my department, other people outside of my department, peers, and things like that. But the main thing I will just go back and say, the conversation with your advisor at the beginning is really important in making sure that you're both getting what you want.
Yeah, I think Joshua's comment about communication and clear communication of expectations is super important. And I think looking back when I was applying to graduate school, I had this conception. I'm a first-gen student, so I didn't really have any other like framework, but like I had this conception that my advisor was going to be like the only person that could support me the whole time. And I know that in some of the sciences, maybe that's a little bit different, but in our program, no two faculty study the same thing, and most students don't even study what the faculty study. It's very interdisciplinary. And so I don't study exactly what my advisor studies. And so I think like having that network of support, like Joshua mentioned, has been really important, and communicating about my goals with all those like faculty has made it seem like I've had like multiple advisors instead of just like one person that I'm putting like all my eggs in that basket. And I think that's like a healthier relationship to have with your advisor, because they can't meet all of your needs. I think there's definitely a supervisory role with them overseeing RA-ships and TA-ships and stuff that can can add a little stress sometimes. But I will say that I've actually had two doctoral advisors since coming to Vanderbilt. My first advisor was a more junior level faculty member who ended up leaving the university to work for the government. But she was amazing because she taught me a lot of hands-on like skills and like really involved me in her research. And that was like amazing. Exactly what I needed during the first couple years. Then because I had networked really well and was working in some other faculty members' labs, when my advisor left, I asked one of those faculty members, who's actually a pretty senior level faculty member, if she would be my advisor. And of course she said yes. And so I've been able to learn from a different style of like someone that's very advanced in her career, has a huge network, will introduce me to people at conferences, and also has been able to really kind of like set the stage for me to get a tenure track position after Vanderbilt. And so I feel like even though it was a little stressful doing an advisor switch in the middle, and I know other folks have done advisor switches at Vanderbilt for other reasons that might be a little bit more negative than my situation, I think I got the best of both worlds. And I think that again, just like even outside of those two people, like there's so many other people that I've gotten advice from that have helped me on my journey. And I think that's what makes it so much like, that's what's going to be your key to success, is really taking advantage of the incredible, highly esteemed faculty that we have at Vanderbilt.
I want to make sure that you who have joined us tonight have the opportunity to ask your questions, the prospective students. So I just wanted to pause for a moment and see, did anyone come here tonight with a specific question in mind, or something you were hoping we would talk about that that maybe we haven't talked about yet? So here's a question. I think financing is a very essential part of being a graduate student. What's the average monthly expenditures, and is it possible to save up some money as a student? I'll go ahead, Joshua.
Okay. Yes, I would say being resourceful is key. And again, it's a trade-off thing. I think I've found that I've had the ability to save money because I have maybe limited myself spending in some areas. For example, maybe I don't travel as much or eat out as much. There are some times throughout the year where I'm like, I really need a good plate of food right now. And so I'll mix that up. The majority of your costs will probably be some combination of housing, food, and transportation. And I'd say if you can get a situation where that's not taking a large chunk of your money, then the rest of the stuff you can end up saving some. And so I just decided to make it a priority to, I guess, delay some things, which it just comes with the turf as being a student. Like you're already delaying things in terms of maybe your earning potential or maybe your time and flexibility. But I think in the long run, investing in yourself does produce benefits. And so I'll say the same financially. Depending on how much you want to save, there might just be some things where you make a decision to say, I'm going to delay this for now and come back to it. So rent, food, that type of stuff doesn't really go away. But I do believe there's a margin where if you're responsible or decisive in how you choose the things that you want to do, you have space to save and be prepared for maybe emergencies or things like that.
So I'll answer this. Like I mentioned before, I have a partner, so my financial situation is a little different. I will say though, and I'm also answering this question as a domestic student. I know international students have a lot of other challenges and barriers on their time and what they're able to do. And so as a domestic student, I am able to actually increase some of the hours that I work for Vanderbilt. So if there are faculty that have additional research hours, or if you take on additional teaching load, there is a way to make a little bit more money. Not really sure what the cap is for international students. So folks would need to check that. I also too have done side like consulting and things to try and like get a little bit more expendable income. That's definitely something that if you have the capacity to do that, like of course, like you're a student and it takes most of your time, but that has been another way. But the biggest tip that I tell everyone that's in their early 20s that I wish I would have known is like get a high yield savings account and like get a hold of that interest a little bit. And that can help you save a little bit of money. But like Joshua said, be really smart. And you are a grad student, you're on a grad student budget. So that means take advantage of those student discounts and make sure you're taking advantage of every single resource that Vanderbilt has.
We've also offered a session on financial well-being earlier this week, and you'll be able to find a recording of that session on the graduate school website. But also wanted to call out some of the student care and student well-being resources here on campus. There is a Center for Student Well-being that has a number of life coaches and people who will help you with budgeting, personal financial planning, things of that nature. So if it seems like a daunting task to figure out how to just manage your resources well, there is help and support here on this end for you as well. Here's another question. Well, actually, Joshua in the chat says, definitely recommend finding some opportunities to add resources. There are tutoring jobs, jobs at the Writing Center, and other things that students can apply for. Yes.
I have a question.
Sure.
I think this is a whole nother session, but the community research and action program is super interdisciplinary, which is super cool. That also makes getting like a job after a little intimidating because you don't have as clear as a home discipline. So I'd love to hear about Vanderbilt's resources, especially for like more untraditional students. And no need to go too in depth because we'll talk about it at the department welcome day as well.
Well, I'll say just off the top that there's a career center here at Vanderbilt with faculty and also life coaches. We have a great the GPAS network that Marissa mentioned earlier, graduate and professional academic success coaches. Nick and Stacy, they are going to have their own information session as well. So those are terrific resources to help you find your way and to see what options you have. And I'll kick it to our current students who can talk about experiences they've had.
Yeah, Sarah, you're definitely hitting me where it's hot because I am in the job market right now, right? And so I think the interdisciplinary nature of Vanderbilt is setting you up for, like, even if you come in, I don't necessarily advise this, but even if you come in with one career idea and then you change in the middle, like, I think you're set up really well for that. And there are a lot of resources to learn those tangible skills to make sure you get that job after. Vanderbilt also is a super marketable name, so you're going to get a job. I will say though that, like, specifically the CRA program, like, we have a lot of people that find success in government roles, in policy roles, and nonprofit roles, and also tenure track. And so I think tenure track's been a little bit more challenging since you got to really figure out the right language to speak for those different departments that may not know what to do with you. But I think I've definitely had resources at the Writing Center where they've looked at my resume and my cover letters, and then the career office, they like have specific people to support graduate students, which I think is super unique. And the last thing I'll share is, like, part of my way of, like, both taking advantage of resources, but also, like, making sure my mental health is prioritized, like, in this really big thing called grad school, has been using resources like the Center for Student Wellbeing. They have, in addition to the life coach that Walt just mentioned, they actually have academic coaches, which sounds a little weird, but like I've been seeing an academic coach or academic counselor for a year and a half, and like even just like getting through milestones and getting through tricky conversations with my advisor, like I 10 out of 10 wish I would have started immediately there, and that has helped me too with the job search process.
So I'll briefly add that another shift in my thinking was thinking, because I'm also in the phase where I'm starting to look at those grad opportunities and shifting from thinking about titles to thinking about traits and experience. I think what happens often is when you're going through grad school, you forget all the things that you are being trained to do. For example, you are learning how to communicate complicated topics. You're writing, you are going through the process of scientific inquiry, you're developing ideas, you synthesize information. Those are things that pretty much anybody's looking for. And so I'd say the problem you might run into is not that you don't have enough roles, but choosing where you want to fit yourself into a role. And it becomes genuinely about finding the things that look attractive for you and then explaining to those folks why you have the specific traits that would lend to that position. So I'm even finding now that roles that if I saw the title, I probably would think it's not a good fit. When I look at some of the descriptions, I'm like, oh, I guess I have done this, or this is something that I picked up, or this is something I can easily pick up in the next like couple months. So the benefit of interdisciplinary studies is that you develop all sorts of transferable traits. And the thing you make sure you do before you leave here is develop a strong enough network so that people can sort of feed you these opportunities and you know where you might fit.
So a couple of you have mentioned the interdisciplinary collaboration opportunities. Will you describe the learning environment here and some of the opportunities that you've had to collaborate with students from other disciplines?
I think one answer that's a little non-traditional is once you're a Vanderbilt student, you can take classes pretty much across the university. Like if you want, like of course that needs to fit into your program of study, but you typically have a couple that you can take elsewhere. And so I've met students from a lot of different departments, and that's been super great for just like expanding beyond Peabody and my department. Marissa also mentioned the Write-On group earlier, and like my Write-On group is pretty diverse. We have folks from across the graduate school, and again, just a great example of Vanderbilt really listening and saying, hey, grad students, what do you need? And we said writing and accountability groups, and that's what they made us. And they've just done it in such a wonderful way that has like taken all the resources and then also like connected us with really awesome grad students. I think outside of that, there are a lot of internal research grants and dollars that you can apply to, like with like interdisciplinary teams, some of which like it literally says like, oh, you need people from 3 different departments. Like, so it quite literally forces you to be interdisciplinary. And I think that is like also carried through in a lot of the undergraduate programs. So a lot of the undergrads you're meeting are studying like 5 different things. And so then like you just are in this environment all the time where it makes it very easy to be interdisciplinary.
Let's talk also about the student community here. How would you describe the demographics, the organizations, the networks? How would you describe it?
So there are hundreds of clubs. And I really want to say there's a flavor for every sort of activity that you might be interested in. And I think it's important for Vanderbilt to support all of these, and they do that. For example, I'm part of the Organization for Black Graduating Professional Students, and we get funding to do events and basically host a space where people from different backgrounds can just kind of come together and have like a home base. Vanderbilt is very good at resourcing groups like that to be able to create spaces on campus where they can feel at home. And I think that's very important. So there are a variety of organizations like that, depending on the different aspects of your identity that you need. It's all there. And I think the fact that it's supported, it's well resourced, and there's pretty much something for everybody, it makes it so that whatever you need to get as supplementary to your graduate experience, I think you'll be able to find it on the campus.
Not graduate specific, but I play in the Vandy Commodore Orchestra, which is completely run by Vanderbilt undergrad students. Like they're the conductors, they're the president. And it's a really cool organization, and it's not just it's a community orchestra, so it's a lot of undergrads, but there's also graduate students, there's professors, there's maybe one or two researchers. So that's been the main way that I've met people outside of my department, just because my department is very not as well connected to the Vanderbilt community as other departments, which I sound like Rachel and Joshua's are a lot more connected. So I think there's, even for me on the outskirts, there's definitely ways that I've been able to get to know other people.
Yeah, I serve as a advisor for one of the undergraduate organizations. So I hang out with undergrads all the time, and I love that. I mean, I want to be a professor, so it's been a great space for me. I will also say at Peabody, we have a lot of like traditional events that are super fun, like Peabody Passport, where they literally like set up different rooms in Wyatt, like in the rotunda, where you go and there's like wine and tea in each of these rooms, and you get your passport stamped, and it's literally just like a super fun social event. If y'all haven't been, you should like find a Peabody student and come with, but because it's super fun. And then things like Peabody trivia, and like, so I think like each of the schools also has like a lot of fun events, at least like from what I've heard. And it kind of like is something you keep looking forward to every year. And even if you don't like drink, you get a wine glass, right? So I have all 4 of my wine glasses like here from every year because I look forward to it, right? So it's been a fun kind of, they'll create social environments too, like on campus, in addition to like really great like speakers and stuff.
I wanted to also quickly add, if on the off chance you get here and you're like, this particular part of my identity is not well represented, you are also well within your rights to create it and get money to do programming. So it's really to the extent that you feel you need to be represented and have spaces to sort of relax, there's resources for it.
Yeah, the nice thing about Vanderbilt is student orgs get a lot of money. I don't know prospective students like what background they're coming from, but I went to a public school, and our student org, like I was in the Music Student Association, we had to fundraise to get our own money to hold our events. And here, like my Biostat Graduate Student Association, we present a budget to I think the Graduate Student Council, and like they decide how much money of what we've asked for, but like we get that money to spend. And my orchestra, like they give us, I think I'm wearing it, like free t-shirts every year. And they like, there's so many resources. So yeah, like Josh said, you can build it if you don't have it.
Well, there's a
know.
lot of,
I
go
just
ahead.
wanted to add, like, I know that we probably don't have this represented on this call, but there's also a lot of support for like folks that are in recovery and folks who have children and people who are going through different stages of grief. Like I just saw like a family grief processing group that sprung up. So I think in addition to like student orgs, there's also like the regular things that happen in your life, like Vanderbilt has like groups for that. And like I've been really, really impressed with like how quickly they'll spin up groups and like that are really responding to the needs of students.
There's a lot of fun and excitement about student life. And as we all know, there are times of pressure in that student life, pressure to perform and make the grades and produce. What are your tips for achieving a work-life balance and managing stress?
I think befriending people in your program is really important. Like my first year in COVID, we were all virtual, and so it was hard to figure out who to work with. But once you have people to work with, then you can, I mean, most professors like allow you to teamwork on homework, and that's really useful. For me, I think once I got past a lot of the, like, we're very course heavy in our first 2 years, so it's basically like being an undergrad again. But as far as like work-life balance, but then once you have less classes, for me, like not opening my computer on the weekends has been a game changer. And I was having a hard time mentally when I first came here, and now I feel a lot better. And that's not always possible for some people I know to not open the computer, but that's been my best thing. And just like having social hours where I'm like not on my phone, or like once a week on Wednesdays I hang out with my friends, and just making sure you're connected to people, I think, is the most important thing.
Yeah, I'll underscore that. So I don't think there's necessarily a thing work-life balance. I call it work-life fit, especially as a grad student. Like you got to kind of be smart about it. But like Marissa said, I just want everyone to hear that like I don't work Saturdays. Like, does that sometimes mean that I'm like rushing to get stuff done other days? Yes. But like I don't work Saturdays, and it's been really important for my mental health. The other thing that someone told me my first year was that you need to read for fun, which sounds so like extra, like as a grad student when you already can't keep up with reading, right? Like, but I try to read about 20 books like for fun, not connected to my program, and it's like made me a better writer, it's made me a better reader, and it's made my like life more enjoyable. So I say read for fun.
Yeah, I guess some of the themes are just find outlets, find community. Some of my outlets, I will go to the gym and play basketball after. It's just a way for me to physically not be sitting at a computer screen and to take care of my body, which is really important. And the community plays a big role too. So even during COVID, when we were isolated, sort of that collective struggle that Marissa was talking about, like having classmates, you're working on the same stuff. You're like, did you get this? No. But like, let's work on it together. And so there you kind of build bonds where it helps you get through those times that are more difficult. And setting boundaries is critical. There were times where I was writing, and so I'd be working at home, and I had to tell myself that there's a space that I'm not going to do work in, and I'm going to like sit on the couch and do something else. And so just making sure that there is a distinct line between that will make sure that your life isn't constantly stressful. Like you'll be able to enter a space mentally or physically where you can provide for your other needs.
Well, we are at our allotted time together. I want to thank you all for a great discussion. Thank you to our student panelists for your insights and your experience and wisdom. Thank you for those of you who joined us. Thank you for your questions. And I've put in the chat our email address. So if there are any other questions about any topic whatsoever, feel free to reach out to us, and we will be glad to get you the information you're looking for. Again, congratulations on your admission. We hope you found tonight to be a valuable session, and we hope that you find lots of reasons to choose Vanderbilt for your graduate education. Thank you again for joining us, everyone.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.